one, they did opt out of the healthcare thing. They tried to pass an amendment that said Congress would be subject to it. It didn't get out of committee. I don't believe it. It didn't pass. It's gone. They do pay Social Security. That's not true. They pay. The amendment that forces them to live under the laws that they pass. Again, most of you have heard me say this. James Madison wrote about this extensively, about how important it was for Congress to live under the laws that they passed. But here's the problem with that amendment and whatnot. We don't need more laws. We don't need more amendments. That's already the law. That is already the law, that they live under the laws that they pass. The problem is we have a bunch of gangsters in Washington right now that think the law doesn't apply to them for anything. We have a president, and this is not talked about a lot, who just completely shredded contract law with Chrysler during the auto bailouts. They just sued, and literally they sued Arizona for asking for a driver's license. They are completely lawless. They don't care what the laws say. You could have a law saying anything right now. If you don't start electing people who actually respect that law, if we don't start holding them accountable for it, then they don't care. Gabrielle Giffords, I talked about that trip to Copenhagen. That's the law, that we are reimbursed fully for what we paid as far as her spouse's 5-star travel day. We got a check written for $400. Wow. They literally spit in our face and we let them do it. What are we going to do about it is the question. What are we going to do about it? Like just
Yes. Have you ever hired a maid or a nanny?
No, ma'am. I'm not well.
Thank God.
Going back to your flat tax, 35 years ago, my wife, my late wife, who was a nationally known accountant, and there was a fancier name than that.
Yes.
She appeared before Congress 3 separate times on this 10%. And they were working on it years ago. And they all listened to her, and everybody in the family all agreed with her, and they all came up and shook her hand, a couple of them hugged her. Nope, they just died, dead. And you're going to have a fight, but it's worth it.
I'm itching for a fight. On cigarettes and beer that's trying to tell you how much salt to keep in your diet. You're daggone right I'm ready for a fight.
He doesn't smoke, don't you know?
Oh, yeah. We better wake up to what we have to deal with. I understand it's going to be a struggle. We need to send enough people to do there and struggle. We are so quick to surrender the battlefield when it's going to be too hard. We need to stop doing it. The liberals never do that. They're in complete power with no numbers right now because they never surrender the battlefield. It's time to start taking ground.
It's very important that we get a Republican conservative Congress in place right away to defund all these activities that Obama has passed and the previous Congress has passed into law until they can be repealed. What I'm saying is Obama's still going to be president for 2 more years, and that's going to be very difficult, I understand, for you for anybody in Congress to pass because he'll veto it, right?
Yeah, you're not going to pass it. I'm convinced after watching what we've seen so far, I'm convinced there's not a single bill this president would pass that would be good for America. Not a single one, let's just be honest. We elected a man who believes in the opposite of what everything in this country was done. Until he changes direction, or maybe he doesn't, you block, you defund, you also force him to veto good bills. We don't just take back Congress and block, which we will do, we have to block and defund. Force him to build up a resume that will help our next presidential candidate. Make him vote down a tax bill to the American people, or spending bill to the American people. Send it to his desk and then run to the press and say it's sitting there, he can do with it what he wants. And aid our next person. We need to strategize. We need to be smart. That's right.
We need. Well, I just got news that you were just endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is the nation's largest small business organization.
Today is October 1st, the first day of fiscal year 11, and Congress has failed to do their job. Without passing a budget. The number one job for House Representatives, they control the purse string. They aren't doing their job. They're getting $174,000 a year. They're there for 6 months out the year, and they can't do their number one job. Will you go to Congress and make sure your not constituents, but your peers, do their job before the next fiscal year comes about, get the budget passed? Because I work on budget, and I see how it works. We're waiting 4 or 5 months until we know what the budget looks like, so we can do our job. So now to spend money, and then they tell us, oh, go spend this $10 million you didn't spend because you didn't know how much you had. It's a big waste of money. One, having to spend all that money because they say you won't get as much the next year if you don't spend it this year. And then two, Congress not doing their job to pass the budget in the first place.
They don't want you to see what's in that budget. It's not an accident they didn't pass it.
They
They don't want the American people to see them pass another budget that spends twice what it takes. It's not a secret. Gabrielle Giffords didn't want you to see the next budget. Of course you didn't. Sure.
What's your thought on term limits?
I think they're fine. I'd vote for them. I'd sponsor them. We have term limits for president. How's that working out? It's up to us to be the term limits. Like I said, I would support them because I think it could help clean it out. We are the term limits that matter. On November 2nd, it's more than just Gabrielle Giffords, the disaster that she is. It's every single member of the U.S. House is up for re-election. We have the power to do so. We say, oh, well, this seat's too safe and that district's too safe. Why? Are there robots in that district? Either we wake up as Americans and start voting in the right people, or we're gone. And all this we talk about is for naught. If we don't start electing people who will guard the Constitution and fight for us, and this is it's all for
How are you going to handle it when you bring up bills and then people put sucker amendments onto those before they're voted on, to say, well, you voted for this, but
they've started to be pretty good for that. You're right. The worst is when they load those up in the defense budgets. They start putting in all these ridiculous pork projects. So you can either vote against the troops or vote for this ridiculous pork project. The good news is the Congress going forward, what we're seeing, they're starting to try to carve out these amendments, or at least they're running on a platform that they're going to. So what we're going to do is no, send it back, cut it out, and then bring it back. That is the goal. That's what we have to do.
A lot of these questions focus on economics, and I'm just wondering how vigorous a voice you'll be for the pro-life movement. Are you?
I completely missed your question. I'm sorry.
I said a lot of these questions focus on economics.
Yeah.
How vigorous a voice will you be for the unborn pro-life movement?
The biggest one there is. I'm 100% pro-life. I always will be pro-life. If we can't get that one right, then I don't want to hear about taxes. This is the United States, not Zimbabwe.
What I wanted to ask is, you talked about defunding Obamacare. Can't Obama veto something like that?
Sure, that's what you want. Present him with a budget that either defunds Obamacare or he shuts down the legislative process. He doesn't own the pen. If we have the numbers, we have the power to give him that. And again, I don't know which would be better right now at this point in time. And it's not like it's helping us when Congress meets. Pass the budget that defunds it or shut down the process. It's up to you, Mr. President. But we have to have enough guts to stand on that.
Yeah.
We can't say, well, maybe some of it's okay. No, none of it's okay. It stinks. The American people didn't want it. Gabrielle Giffords voted for it, and she's going to get voted out because of it. So.
Speaking about Hillary, isn't the process that like 2/3 of the House and Senate would vote for something and override the president? And then the Constitution is seeing the Constitution how we don't follow it anymore. It's absurd. The senators, weren't they originally supposed to have their power from and elected by the state, and the Congress was for the people? And why have they changed why did they change everything?
That was the 17th Amendment for the senators. The senators were originally not elected; they were appointed by the state legislature. It was intended to protect states' rights. That's why the founders put it down that way. The 17th Amendment took that away. So, that's what we got, sir.
What are the odds of getting a live debate with
Nancy, maybe no difference.
Well, you had it right, it's just one and the same.
Uh,